We've spoken when we met last time so much about digitalization, and I think we see so much of that effort continue in the budget. For example, the entire effort at enhancing DigiLocker, extending it to or mating PAN, DigiLocker, Aadhaar. What exactly is the goal in terms of ease of business, in terms of what the government seeks to do? Is it just to draw in potentially more people into the tax net, or is it basically about ease for millions of people across the country?
No, Vishnu, it's not. There is an absolutely clear objective. We want to make it easy. As you know that millions and crores of Indians have the digital ID, the Aadhaar ID, and we have an Aadhaar identity authentication platform that is working very well to ensure that the identity of the beneficiary is the real beneficiary. So that has worked very well. We have then subsequently, as you know, built the India stack with multiple layers and multiple different applications, which include UPI, DigiLocker, CoWIN, etc., etc. And the India stack is something that is now expanding and growing. And as you heard in the budget, artificial intelligence also will be part of the functionality and the capability within the India stack. Now, the idea here is that just like we have multiple identities for citizens and corporates constantly complain about the need for having different identities. You have PAN for some sort of services and some sort of public registration, and then there are other identities that they have to use. So we have now said, look, we will just standardize that the identity of the corporate will be linked to his or her PAN, as the case may be, and that will be just a simple way for corporates to identify themselves as they navigate through an increasingly digitalizing government ecosystem and the government stack.
Okay. The scope of services in DigiLocker will be expanded. How?
Look, I think the DigiLocker is becoming increasingly the go-to
Absolutely. Indispensable.
Personal cloud. And as the number of public services and the number of digital public infrastructure and digital public services expand, and they're only going to expand, as the Prime Minister and the budget signals that the digitalization of government is only going to accelerate, and more services, more and more what the citizen wants, and a framework of trust and governance that the budget clearly outlines is going to be achieved by more and more of these services, ranging from e-courts to the other extreme. So the DigiLocker is really the personal cloud, if you want to call it that, for every Indian citizen, where he and she can store data, documents, and use the DigiLocker in turn for any kind of authentication, any kind of document sharing, any kind of verification between services or between government departments, or indeed the private sector as well.
Another interesting steps is e-courts, and the finance minister has put an outlay of 7,000 crores, phase 3 of e-courts. How would this make legal dealings much easier? What is the ultimate goal of e-courts?
Look, I think the broad objective is really that the world's oldest democracy and the world's greatest democracy deserves the world's greatest digital justice system. And the many other arguments that are out there to expedite pendency. There are large numbers of cases that are held up. And so it is clear during COVID that the digital technologies, using of digital technologies in the justice system has helped people considerably address the issue of pendency. So the framework or the architecture of the e-courts has been finalized. It is something that is being driven by the Supreme Court committee. The government and the NIC and the MeitY have worked closely with the Ministry of Law and Justice to create a framework where almost every stakeholder who is a stakeholder of the justice system can navigate the justice system in the future using this new revamped next-gen e-courts that was alluded to in the budget.
100 labs for developing applications to use 5G services to be set up. What applications are you thinking about?
Look, Vishnu, I think we briefly touched on this when we last spoke. 5G is unlike any other technology, any other generation of wireless technologies that India or indeed the world has seen. It is a very, very distinctly new generation, new type of technology. It is very disruptive. It is extremely broad in terms of its applications and applicability. And interestingly enough, the world and India are at the same starting point in terms of creating the ecosystem of applications for 5G. And so this move to really get all of the young students and engineers and startups from all around the country through these 100 centers of excellence, which are embedded in these academic institutions, is one very, very strong way of catalyzing a robust startup ecosystem around 5G. And I just want to draw the parallel again here between how Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji created this UPI fintech ecosystem. He essentially drew out the design of UPI to solve a government problem. And the problem was of sending money to a beneficiary without any leakage and as responsibly and as disintermediate way as possible. And lo and behold, UPI happened, and lo and behold, you have one of the fastest growing fintech ecosystems in the world with hundreds and thousands of startups. And I think that is the central idea here, that 5G is of course a policy of the government. These three large operators are rolling out the basic backbone, but we want to create an ecosystem of innovation and startups that will be creating applications in health, agriculture, education, and all kinds of things that we can't even anticipate today from these 100 centers. And it is similar. That is a similar idea with the 3 centers of excellence for AI as well. It's the exact same model. We think AI is a very, very powerful kinetic enabler of the digital economy going forward. It's going to play a very central role in our digital economy. And in 2023, as you know, India is chairing the Global Partnership of AI, which is a formation of all countries that are very good in AI. And so we think we have something to show the world in terms of our capabilities in AI. These 3 centers of excellence will be one way of catalyzing that.
Digital payments have shown an increase of a whopping 76% in transactions in 2022. And so you're going to back digital payments with fiscal support going forward as well. What is this an indicator of?
Look, I think it is again a tremendous indicator of behavioral change, a qualitative improvement in the financial sector in terms of the formalization of transactions, if you want to use that phrase, that the economy, while the Indian economy was always described as black money driven and cash money driven for several decades. I know I grew up most of my young adulthood being told that it is cash money, cash money, cash money. And we have made the pivot, we have made this whole new change into a digital economy, formal transaction.
Though most still use cash in this country, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
No, that's fine. I don't think there will ever be a time in our history or in our lives or indeed our children's lives where cash will come down to zero. We don't see that anywhere in the world. So India is not going to be some outlier to that habit. But I think the fact that there is increasing economic activity that is done digitally, that is more formal, is only enhancing the quality of the underlying digital economy and the underlying economy in the financial sector.
I must ask you a little bit about the IT sector now. When we spoke in Dubai a couple of months back, in fact, there were layoffs, there were retrenchments in Indian companies, and you had made the point of actually speaking to several companies and saying, look, you have to be careful about how you're doing this, and it's not okay to be laying off people without having some sort of effort at propping them, assisting them, etc., etc. We now face this situation of Indian professionals in the United States. They've got kids in school, they're out of a job, they've been given, 6 odd months to find another job or leave. So there is a bit of a humanitarian crisis among extremely skilled Indian citizens. Your thoughts on that situation affecting them presently in America?
No, look, I can't believe that this is in any way fair. I don't think these big companies that are multi-billion-dollar companies are doing this right. We all can agree that in startups where there is volatility and there is contraction, success, failure, this kind of risk of employment is something that is more par for the course. But for these big companies that are huge multi-billion-dollar so-called big tech companies to be, treating their employees and treating their workforce in what is really quite a shabby manner is obviously not agreeable to any one of us. I, of course, see this also from another point of view, which is that India today, our own tech economy is growing so fast and we are so talent, in a sense, constricted, or we are restricted, we are limited by availability of talent. And I have addressed two groups of people who have been laid off recently, and I've said to them, come back to India, because here salaries are going up, going through the roof, and every company today, whether they're in the tech services business or they are in the startup ecosystem, is looking for world-class talent. So I think there is a growing realization that India is the place to be for the next few years as the digital economy and the opportunities in the digital economy expand, and that you don't necessarily have to make the long trip to Silicon Valley to fulfill either your professional aspirations or your creative or your intellectual. I think all of those can be met in India, and I'm making a strong case to as many of them as I can personally communicate to, saying, look, come back to India, because there are plenty of job opportunities in India in the tech space.
And have you also been speaking to these companies, because they have a presence in India as well?
No,
have you reached out to them about the America situation affecting?
No, I don't. It'll be a waste of my time, Vishnu, and I don't have a habit of wasting my time. I mean, I would, if it's just to make a soundbite or just to make an academic point, I'd make it. But I think they are US-based companies. The laws that govern them are very different. I'm a minister in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. I have to look after what is our ecosystem here.
Sure.
And certainly, I can reach out to those who are, in a sense, having a tough time, and volunteer that they come back here, work here, seek out opportunities here, and I will certainly render every help that I can in making that little trip back and resettlement here possible.
A final question to you, in as much as we talk about the retrenchment of Indians in American companies and foreign companies in the IT space abroad, if you look at some of our own champions, just off the top of my head, TCS is hiring 57,000 people at a time when people are laying off. So we as Indians in our companies, in those markets, are doing phenomenally well.
Absolutely. The Indian tech sector and the Indian digital economy today is the fastest growing digital economy anywhere in the world. And we started some years ago at being 4 to 6% of the overall GDP. And I think by 25, 26, the digital economy will become at least 20 to 22% of the overall GDP of India. So I think there is tremendous headroom for growth. Prime Minister Modi's policies have made it very, very obvious that opportunities are opening up in very, very, very diverse areas for youngsters who either want to work in a particular area or build their own enterprises and franchises and create their own startups in those areas. So ranging from semiconductors to drones to space, you talk about it, and there are young Indians who are going out there and proving to the world that they can do what the rest of the world is doing. So I think it is a very exciting time to be in the tech space in India. And to those who are in the US and who are Indian, I say, look, come back here in India and create ideas that will be deployable for the rest of the world. And as Prime Minister Modi said in 2015, India is becoming no longer a consumer of technologies. We want to produce, design, architect devices, products, platforms, and solutions of all things digital for the rest of the world. So I think that is the opportunity to which talent is coming back. And increasingly, I do these invites saying, look, come back to India and work for TCS if you are having a tough time in Silicon Valley with one of these big tech companies.
And I must ask you one final question, because it really does affect our economic growth going forward. Semiconductors.
Yes.
We have a national semiconductor mission. Could you tell us where we stand beyond just the idea now and the initial, financial commitment?
I think when you talk about semiconductors, it's important to talk about it in the context of our tremendous success in electronics. We have from 2014 really transformed as a nation that was importing 80% of our mobile phones now to manufacturing 99% of our mobile phones and exporting next year 1 lakh crores of mobile phones. So the electronics transformation is what is motivating this investment and this support for semiconductors. Semiconductors is a long game. I've said this repeatedly. It is not something that will have instant gratification. The technology is the purview of a few companies of the world. They are not in the business of just handing it out for charity or handing it out because we want it. So this is a long game. We are making this case to the semiconductor majors that India is a great country to manufacture. Geopolitically, locationally, market-wise, we are going to be a $110 billion semiconductor market in automotive, mobility, compute by the year 2028. So I think this is a long game, but
Sure.
You will see in the coming weeks and months a number of announcements coming out of the ISM, the India Semiconductor Mission, that will be announcements that are in the semiconductor ecosystem. So I think my advice is just to stay tuned. We are on the job, and you will hear of progress being made.
All right, fantastic speaking to you. Great ideas over there. This is very much our future, our digital future. Thanks very much, Minister, for being with us. Thanks very much.